Black people are not a monolithic group. You may have heard that before if you're a Black person, but it's basically saying that we're not all the same. But Zora Neale Hurston, one of her famous quotes is not all skin folk are kinfolk. And I think it's important to not wrongly project your desires and thoughts and emotions and expectations on fellow colleagues just because they might be from the same place as you, area, ethnic group, or country as you. Hi everyone, and welcome to Apprenticeish, where we talk all about apprentices, apprenticeships, kind of.
My name's Alika.
And my name's Josephine.
And we are your hosts of the Apprenticeish Podcast.
Woo!
Episode 3!
Yes, well on our way.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about, the title makes it quite obvious. And obviously this can be quite a sensitive topic. So I'm going to give a disclaimer just so everyone is on the same page and we all know what we're talking about. I'm going to be reading from the script. I'm talking about the experiences of working in a law firm and the office environment more generally. We're discussing topics covered through team lunches, general industry behavior, as well as real firm culture. This is not just about us and our experiences, but also based on a number of different people we've spoken to at events, people we know, friends, family, etc. And this is not just based on law specifically, but also as in the legal industry, but also research that we have also carried out. It is based on a number of different variables, i.e. the experience is based on a number of different variables, such as gender, size of the firm or company, the culture, department, managers, supervisors, and what level you're at. What we're about to say does not just happen in law, but also does not happen in every company. Some of these things may occur to people who are not Black, but that is not the conversation that we'll be having today. Ta-da!
Very nicely done.
Thank you. So moving swiftly on to the very first topic.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you're watching this podcast, you will see that this is the third episode and I have a new hairstyle. This is the third.
And I have the same hairstyle.
I know, and I love that for you. I really do.
Thank you.
I can't help it. I do love switcheroo.
No, yeah, I like it too. That's what I like about being a Black woman.
It's very versatile.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to start off by talking about one of the most obvious things that you may notice about someone's head, which is their hair. The Black community as a whole is very well known for having very versatile hair. We switch it around quite a lot around here.
Diversity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it's rich. It's like a rich history of hair. I love it.
There is sometimes behaviour that comes along with this hair. And not obviously from the people who are, changing their hair regularly, but also, or rather, if we're talking about it from a workplace perspective, sometimes there are instances where work colleagues will have an interesting reaction to your hair, and these reactions honestly could range. Some people are very supportive, they love the new hairstyle, they're complimenting how it changes your face shape, blah, blah, blah. But of course there's the other side of that, which is, sometimes people will act like they've never met you before.
Yeah. I didn't recognize you.
Yeah.
I think reactions to hair are just reactions. I don't think that there's a line between good and bad reactions, because someone will be like, oh, it's so drastic.
No,
is that a compliment?
No, I'm so sorry. If someone came to me after I've just changed my hair from this kind of hairstyle to normal braids, not this hair type, and said, oh,
Such a drastic change.
No, I've never met you before. Hi, my name is.
Yeah.
I would be offended.
Yeah.
How do you not recognize
I agree. I'm saying that all of the reactions to Black hairstyle changes, if they're not just, oh, I like your hair, if it's not just a simple, uninflated, non-dramatic response, I just feel like everything's coded.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Acting like they don't recognize you means that they don't pay attention to your face.
That's why.
Do you know what I mean? And saying dramatic or drastic or saying I could never do that.
Yeah.
Who told you like I'm coming with a new
that.
hairstyle and you are projecting very, very fast. So that's what I mean. I'm saying that anything that's just a bit over the top is just coded in something that has nothing to do with you. Do you know what I mean? It's very funny, like very, very funny reactions.
And I think, like, obviously, when we're talking about range of hair, like, and we have to appreciate hair does obviously change your face, but it's not to the point where you become unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Like, changing my hairstyle from last week, you would have seen, if you're watching this, I wore a wig. This week, I'm wearing braids. The very first week, it was my natural hair. It's not, like, my face hasn't actually changed.
Yeah. Like, I could walk past you because my brain is used to seeing you in braids. I'm like, oh, I didn't recognize you. But once I've stopped and seen you, I should recognize you.
Exactly.
But reintroducing myself to you like you're a stranger.
That's actually outrageous.
That is, I don't believe it. I just feel like you're doing too much. I actually don't believe it.
That's crazy.
I don't believe them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is.
What kind of hairstyles have you worn in the workplace?
At work?
Yeah.
Wigs. I don't like wigs, but wigs.
Yeah. No fair.
I love wigs on other people. I just have a very funny relationship with wigs. And then I've done cane rows. I've done twist outs. I've done faux locks, real locks, box braids. Yeah. And now I'm just natural. Yeah.
I've done like pretty much all of the same, or all of the above. I don't think maybe I have worn cane rows, I just don't remember.
So these were like Ghana, the Ghana
I've
ones.
never
So it's
done
like
those.
cane rows and then it becomes braids.
I've never done those.
Yeah. It ruined my edges.
Yeah, I've done like virtually everything you said.
Yeah.
And also, I think just sew-ins. That was the only other thing I'd add. Sew-ins, clip-ins, that kind of stuff. But I think when it comes to black hair in the professional workspace, there has been a history of resistance, I would say, to some degree, when black women I'm talking about black women specifically, have come into work with their natural hair or school. I've read and seen and come across different stories, more so in the US, to be fair. But
there's a couple in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, of like afros being a distraction to everybody else's learning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or being sent to the back of the class because your hair is too big and you're blocking other students from seeing the board. Just silly things to like alienate and make them feel alone, even though they're probably the only
That's crazy.
person.
Most of the ones that I've seen in the US, they were quite severe, to be fair. Like the police literally had to be called because the teacher was doing too much, or the police officer was doing too much to, like a student.
I feel
because of their natural hair.
Oh, okay. I definitely feel like there's a difference between, like, obviously it's a hot topic, race relations in the UK versus the US, but it is more in your face. Like, I've seen footage of like braids being cut with scissors by a teacher.
Wow.
And like them likening cane rows to like some sort of gang affiliation.
Oh wow.
Whereas in the UK it's like being sent home and like having your sort of like education, your learning journey disrupted. Yeah, so there's like a difference. Yeah,
that's interesting. I haven't come across so many in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, it's just I guess what I'm reading. But I think when it comes to professionalism, I have received a few questions about, like, I don't know if I should wear my natural hair at a job interview, or is it professional if I have my if I have my hair like braided back. And I think, we're moving into a new space. Do you get what I mean?
100%.
I feel like perhaps the previous generations may have seen that as unprofessional. Yeah. But I think more conversations have been had since, which has opened up the space for it to be more acceptable. Yeah. But separately, I do think if I go to an interview and I feel like I could be turned away because I have my hair out, or because I'm not saying it needs to be messy, child, because Afro is actually hard labor. Like, it takes a lot of work to maintain. But if I feel like I'm going to be turned away because of that, why would I want to work there?
Yeah.
I can't, if I can't even be comfortable, if I feel like I have to wear a wig or I have to straighten my hair.
Yeah, that's where I disagree, because I'm like, I feel like there's all sorts of styles you could wear to an interview, but that's probably because I have the privilege of not having been discriminated because of my hair at a job. So I'm sure there are experiences out there that are just shocking.
Yeah.
But for me, the only thing I probably wouldn't do, if I had a huge afro, because I don't.
Yeah.
But if I had a huge afro, I'd make sure that like it's like either in a ponytail, or like just put away behind my head so they can see my face.
Yeah.
But not because I'm like, oh, they're gonna tone me down. Da, da, da. It's more of a like, the aesthetic is like, I'm here, I'm confident, and like I know I'm right for the job, so you're gonna see my face sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have anything like covering. But it's interesting. It's really interesting. I've heard some stories where girls are like, yeah, I can't go apply for a job without a wig on. I don't know.
Yeah. I used to be like that though.
Really?
Yeah, I was like scared that companies would be like, no, because I have my
you're not
hair
wearing a
braided
wig.
back. Yeah, so I wore a wig in every interview. Every single interview, yeah. But then I was just like, that's problematic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not your only option. Is
No,
what I
of
mean.
course.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
I made it my only option.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because it's a funny one, because I'm like, are you wearing the wig because what do you think they're going to say if you were wearing braids or cane rows? Like, what do you think is going to be the connotation that gets attached? And that's when I'm like, I'm not going to occupy the mind of like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
1000%.
It's interesting, for sure. Yeah.
But it's a stereotype that is being faded out. The stereotype being natural black hair is unprofessional in the workplace.
Yeah.
Is being faded out.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know if stereotype is the right word, but the association of unprofessionalism with natural black hair in the workplace is being faded out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think, I mean, I don't even want to go into texturism, but I feel like there's a starting point where people who have a certain texture of natural hair can come and go freely. And I feel like the more coily and kinky you get, the more techie and politicized it gets.
Yeah.
But hopefully we're moving into a space where like all natural hair is acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm looking forward to that moment.
Yeah. Do you know, I just think because like, obviously we're in London and sometimes it's harder to see from another perspective. But I have heard people who work outside of London where the company's not so diverse, like at all. And I don't know, the hair topic is still
a thing. It's major. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because you're not just when we're talking about black hair and professionalism, we're not just talking about what people outside of our race are saying. It's also the things that are being fed in our culture and in our family. Like if you're from a family that has a colonial history, then you're thinking no locks because that's unprofessional. You're thinking, as a man, shave your head clean, like because you don't like that to them is professional and clean and presentable. Yeah. And as a woman, like natural hair is a no-no. Like you have to cover it up or put it in braids or put it in something. So yeah, it's funny because you could have this sort of liberal idea of what is professional as a black person, and then you've got what society is saying, and then you've got maybe what your parents are saying.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, just do you.
Yeah,
like,
you have to. You actually have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just dead all the noise and do you.
Yeah.
If you can. Okay, stereotypes.
Yeah.
So, stereotypes is a very interesting one. And I think the first very important point to make is the experience of a black man and a black woman in terms of the stereotypes they face in life and in the workplace are just worlds apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first important point to make. I don't feel like I'm in the correct, like I'm not in the position to speak about black male experiences, because I'm not a black male. But I did have a conversation with my friend who is a banking consultant about race and just about his experience like working in the workplace. And he made an interesting point about, I'm going to call it bodies over brains.
Okay.
Where it's basically like there's more energy like outside of the workplace, in terms of like, oh, are you going to play like football with us? Or like, are you coming to this social event? Are you coming to this party? Are you coming to these drinks? There was more energy for that person there than there was inside the workplace. And examples that he raised were like less investment into like developing his skills and training him, and also like when the boss is delegating work, then it's like just assuming, maybe having this unconscious bias that like he's capable of less, and he linked that to his race. So that was a really interesting conversation, and I feel like it would be so interesting to have a conversation with a black male degree apprentice. Maybe that could be an episode.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
But we're going to speak about the black female degree apprentice experience. That is a mouthful.
Yeah.
So let's start off with misogynoir, which is, I'll give you the definition actually. So from Merriam-Webster, it is the hatred of, aversion to, or prejudice against black women. But similar to the point I was raising before about how it's different in the US and the UK, I feel like in the UK everything is more nuanced, and everything can be it's more subtle, and you can be gaslit into thinking that it didn't happen, or that's not the way it was intended, or do you know what I mean? So I think that's a very important point to make, that the UK is not like America. So the stereotypes, I think the most pertinent ones: angry black women, unprofessional black women, and strong, independent black women.
Wait. I've been called that a few times.
Yeah,
actually.
me too.
Yeah.
All my life.
Not at this firm, but crazy.
Yeah. And let's go through all of them. Let's them.
Talk to me, JC.
Okay, so let's start with angry black women.
Girl.
So, the angry black woman is, how do I explain it? I think anger is a normal emotion. Every human experiences it.
Yeah.
But it's society, when society sees a black woman become angry, they're more likely to attribute that anger to her personality rather than the thing that actually happened that incited the anger. Even if that event would have made anybody else angry, people like to liken the anger to the black woman. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes it's for comedic effects. Oh, you're so sassy. And other times it's like fearful.
Sassy.
Yeah.
These words, JC.
I hate sassy.
Bringing back trauma.
And other times it's more like fearful and fear inciting.
Yeah.
And so it's a really harmful stereotype because it's weaponized to dismiss like valid concerns. It's weaponized against a black woman being assertive, which she's fully entitled to do.
I do find that sometimes people have an issue with directness
when it's coming from
and therefore the woman is labeled as, you know,
attitudinal. The fact that I'm completing your sentences,
it tells you something about the culture of the office environment.
100%. And I think both the sassy comedic and both the attitudinal hard to work with. You know, I'm scared for my life or my safety, whatever. They're both really harmful. And everybody deals with it in different ways.
They do.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing, and I've been guilty of it, is performative happiness. Yeah. So like to combat this whole, I'm not attitudinal, I'm not scary, work with me, like me, give me work. You have to do this whole unnecessary smiling, even if, you know, it's not a good day for you.
Yeah.
This sort of by force bubbliness.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has a name for it. I've seen like gentle giant. I've seen all sorts. But it's just very exhausting and hard to maintain.
It is hard to maintain.
Yeah, especially like, what about the black girls that are introverted or neurodivergent?
Yeah.
I think it's just gonna like wear on you as time goes by.
Yeah. I mean, if someone feels like they need to pretend or keep up this persona of being happy all the time, inevitably it will lead to some kind of toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Which means that you're kind of emotionally restricted at work.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, very hard to do, depending on the work you do. But I kind of did want to link that to healthcare as well, because I think that's such a good similarity in the sense that the idea that sometimes the weaponization, let me get this right, the weaponization of anger and dismissing valid concerns, and from like a healthcare perspective, you can see that like there are the figures, the statistics itself, it's very clear that black women or their concerns aren't taken as seriously and therefore are more prone to injury or death during childbirth. Injury either to herself or her child or both. So I think obviously we're aware that it's a cultural thing, but I think it's interesting to add that into the background.
100%. Because, I mean, this was back in the pandemic, the statistics, but it was black women are 5 times more likely to die in childcare than white women.
Childbirth.
Okay.
I'm
so sorry.
It's
Shall I
okay.
repeat that?
No,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, the unprofessional black woman.
Who is she?
She doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's another classless stereotype. And I think, you know, you've covered a lot of it with hair, but also I think body types should be discussed.
I was reading about this recently, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you read?
This lady was working in an office environment, of course, and she was wearing a similar outfit to her work colleague. And she was basically... Actually, I don't know if this is the same point, but basically she was like sexualized.
And vilified for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same point. I feel like if a black woman with a particular body type is wearing the same outfit as their colleague at work, could be the same dress from Zara, the reaction is different.
It could be the loosest of dresses as well.
Yeah. So I think unconscious perpetrators of misogynoir will give like a disproportionate amount of hate to the black woman dressed in professional clothing just because it fits them differently.
Yeah.
And that is something to be discussed because, you know, we want people to feel empowered and to be walking into the workplace confident and not worrying about trivial and untrue things. So that stereotype is something that I haven't seen solutions or ways that people manage it, but it's definitely in existence, you know?
I do wonder. I'm not trying to propose a solution, but I think it's not really an issue I think it's a mindset thing. You can't control somebody else's perception of you.
Yeah.
It's about how that person perceives like a black body.
Yeah.
And whether if they see something that is, you know, an outfit that is super fitted or not super fitted, are they automatically going to put that into a category based on the fact that you're a black woman and irrespective of your body type, i.e. whatever you wear, somebody's going to have an issue with it.
Have a problem with it. Yeah, it is a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Until someone makes it your problem, until somebody interrupts your day to come and give you a comment about what you're wearing and how it looks to them.
Yeah.
But that's the whole concept of microaggressions. Like, first person who says it, calm, ignore it. Second person who says it, it's okay. Third person, this is becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So, it's very interesting for sure. And I think the third stereotype, the independent, strong black woman, shout out to Olivia Pope from Scandal and Annalise Cheating from How to Get Away with Murder. But it's basically...
actresses.
It's basically... How would I put it? I think it's more this assertion that black women are naturally strong, resilient, self-contained, self-sacrificing, take on everybody else's problems, and they still, they've just got like this superhero mentality, and it's a very unrealistic ideal, and it promotes, again, emotional restraint, which is very weird. I don't get that. It promotes independent mindset, not asking for help, not taking help. And it also promotes caretaking and this sort of like, they're motherly, they're helpful, they'll speak life into me, they'll take care of me and my problems, and I can use them to therapize. And it's a very harmful stereotype.
What does that look like in the workplace?
In the workplace, I think it's on both ends. If you are affected by that stereotype, then when you are communicating your struggles, you're not being listened to, you're not being heard until it's so obvious to everybody, or until you're on the brink of burnout. Do you know what I mean?
Mental breakdown.
Yeah, on the brink of a mental breakdown. That's when everybody is like, oh, you're human.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, this sort of blindness to, and it sort of can be linked to black maternal healthcare, like that sort of blindness to pain or struggle, and sort of encouraging you to just keep going on. Because I remember even...
I hate that.
Keep going on.
Yeah.
Break,
if you
break
can
your
see
back.
that I'm struggling, why don't encourage me to go on?
Yeah.
It's not, encourage a break.
100%.
I think that's probably more beneficial for everybody involved. Yeah.
And I don't think some people, I don't think they understand how harmful the stereotype is, because I know that, if it's happened to me before. I was a teenager and I was speaking to like friends from back then about something I was struggling with. And I think instead of being a safe space for me to vent and for me, and in turn for me to be comforted, it was more like dismissed and like, don't worry, you're a strong, independent black woman. You don't need nobody.
Yeah.
That is just not.
I need community and help, please.
Exactly. Like you think you're giving a compliment, or you think you're empowering somebody, but you're actually dismissing them and very valid concerns. So what started off as maybe a line from a TV show, or you being at a loss and you don't know how to comfort somebody, has now become this really harmful stereotype that I feel like our generation and the people in our time are using the internet to dismantle, and I applaud them for it, because it's tiring.
I think it is tiring, even from the perspective of like work. I'm thinking about or rather imagining a scenario where if your teammates did have that attitude towards you, there's a very high risk, especially as being an apprentice, of overworking to the point of like, burnout.
Exhaustion.
And then it's only when you're burned out, I'm just summarizing all of the topics into a scenario, it's only when you're burned out that, they're like, oh, actually, maybe this was too much work. Like, maybe you should have thought about that earlier. But then also, I think there is some responsibility with us to be able to communicate as well. Like, this is way too much. Share that out.
Definitely. Boundaries is definitely so important. It's one of like the most powerful tools you have as an apprentice, because the workload is just crazy in different regards. And so if you don't have boundaries set and you don't know how to say no, then I'm sure, well, let me not even say I'm sure, but there are a myriad of different workplaces and different workplace environments, and I know that there are some apprentices who have a never-ending task list.
So, boundaries are incredibly important. Yeah? Okay. So, moving on from stereotypes.
Yes.
And I think the linking point here is that stereotypes can show up in the smallest of ways, and sometimes small things, as you mentioned earlier, is on the topic of microaggressions. I don't think we need to talk about actual aggression. Like, that's quite clear.
Yeah.
If someone is calling you out of your name, i.e. via a racial slur, it's very clear that there's an issue there. But microaggressions, which is far more pervasive in the English culture or British culture within the UK, obviously, which is what we're talking about. Microaggressions can be very harmful, closely linked to gaslighting. And can appear in a myriad of different ways.
Yeah.
So, microaggressions, they are, or it is, a small act or remark that makes someone feel insulted or treated badly because of their race, sex, etc., even though the insult, etc., may not have been intended, and that can combine with other similar acts or remarks over time to cause emotional harm. I think the key thing that I took away from this definition is the lack of intention.
Yeah.
Because that is how microaggressions become micro. Sometimes they're so tiny. The person who is displaying microaggressive behavior doesn't even realize it and that's linked to unconscious bias or, whatever. But there are other ways where people do intend to just be problematic sometimes.
Yeah.
A little bit harmful.
I feel like even if your intention is to cause harm and your intention is racism, microaggressions are something that is at your disposal. And when you're called up on it, you can rely on, oh, that wasn't what I meant, that wasn't my intention.
Yeah.
Even though
maybe it was.
Yeah, maybe it was. We'll never know. That's
Exactly.
why microaggressions are a funny topic. Very interesting. Yeah.
And it could look like so many different things. It could look like, being excluded from particular meetings. It could look like, people, we're already friends there before you join the team. And so perhaps they're not inviting you to lunches or,
Yeah. I mean, you're so articulate. That's the popular one. Surprise. That you're communicating surprise that this black person is well spoken or has a vocabulary that is expansive. Crazy.
Yeah.
In 2024, but it happens a lot.
Yeah. Or also, siphoning work off to somebody else in the team. Particularly when the racial makeup of the team is imbalanced. And, considering the general population of the UK, even if that particular industry or that workplace reflected exactly what the general population of the UK was, there's naturally going to be an imbalance. There's just less black people in the UK.
Like 4 or 5% of the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, there are, I won't go into it now, but the temptation, I think, as an apprentice, is to put it down as, they're behaving like that because I'm an apprentice.
Right.
Or because I'm not, more advanced in my apprenticeship, perhaps you're in the earlier stages, or that's why I didn't get invited to that meeting, or that's why they're not including me in the team lunch. Or
Okay.
So this is not correct in the sense that your position as an apprentice should not inhibit someone from treating you in the same way or the same fashion as another work colleague, somebody else in the team. And it was also very hard to identify what somebody's intention is, especially if that person doesn't see it themselves.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like you can't read minds. You have to take things at face value. And there'll be a lot of instances and conversations that might leave you like questioning Like, what was that? What did they mean by that? But that's where it should stop. Like, I feel like...
Yeah, you could go in circles with this.
Exactly. You could overthink it and it can cause you more psychological or mental harm than it needs to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes just being aware that, oh, this person is microaggressive, is racially microaggressive, and just having that, you know, on your sort of radar is a protective measure in itself, because you know what's off bounds, keep the conversation limited, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one because I've been seeing that a lot of like training providers that train companies and businesses on just, you know, behavior, like how to handle yourself. They'll deliver training on like loads of hot topics, or like diversity and inclusion, and microaggressions is one of them.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there needs to be regulation with the people that are taking it upon themselves to go to companies and teach about microaggression and racism and stuff like that. Because for me, I don't think there's an authority in it. So for you to say, this is our package and we're going to teach this whole firm that, you know, this is what you do say, and this is what's harmful, and this is what's wrong, and this is what's bad, and these are the solutions. Like, you know, telling people the whole point of microaggressions and why people are raising it up as an issue is because it's exhausting for the victim of it. So now telling the victim, you should educate every single time you're hit with a microaggression. Is that not adding to the to-do list and to the exhaustion, the mental exhaustion of the person that's having to experience it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not encouraged. It's not by force. You don't need to educate anybody.
Yeah.
If they're ignorant, we just pray that they will continue to read.
100%. I agree with changing the world, and I agree that education defeats ignorance. But I don't think it's always on you in every single occasion. That's just exhausting. But yeah.
Yeah. Training is I don't know if you wanted to go into it now, but just the idea that if it's even more problematic, if number one, the message is problematic and the person giving it is, you know,
so true.
So true.
Yeah, I feel like, so exactly. The person delivering the training may look the part, and I literally hate saying that phrase, look the part, but I just feel like...
explain what you mean?
I can give an example.
In the topic of microaggressions.
Yeah, in the topic of microaggressions. If a business received microaggressions training and that training was being delivered by, I don't know, a queer person of colour, that doesn't necessarily make the training legit, just because, do you know what I'm trying to say? And that's, I mean, diversity is a very, very like crowded place, and there's a lot of information and a lot of viewpoints, so it's a tricky one to navigate. But I think that is important, that just because you've hired somebody who looks like they know what they're talking about, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're talking about, or it doesn't mean that you don't need to vet the points that they're about to deliver to your whole do you know what I mean, to your whole company or business. So I think that's important too.
Yeah.
So speaking about diversity, obviously that is a sort of goal point and objective for everybody industry-wide. And I think it's important to talk about diversity in the workplace in the sense that people have this unconscious bias when it comes to people of colour in the workplace being more junior than they actually might be. You know, I've spoken to qualified lawyers, barristers and solicitors that are mistaken for secretaries or paralegals, even in Black and White. The book by, remind me of her name, Alexandra Wilson, where she was mistaken. She's a qualified barrister, superstar, Oxbridge trained, and she was mistaken for the accused or the defendant like 4 times in one day by staff in her industry. It's just, I feel like, and I speak to doctors who are qualified, they've done their GP training or whatever, and they're mistaken as nurses. And so it's just an unconscious bias thing in society where you see a black person and you're like, oh, you're the help, or oh, you're not the boss, you're not the person in control, you're not the authority here. And that's why I feel like apprenticeships are so important as a tool, because even though your starting point is like fly on the wall, soaking it up, learning, it's, especially degree apprenticeships, they're 6 years for you to just leverage your experience, develop all the skills, fast track, and for a company to actually know you and be like, I've actually known this person for 6 years, I've been working with them for 6 years, of course I'm going to promote them, of course I'm going to like welcome them with open arms after qualification. Obviously that's not everybody's experience, but I'm just saying apprenticeships are a really important tool for combating that sort of, oh, you must not be. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, fab. I think we will move on to, I mean, obviously this conversation could go on forever. It's a conversation that will be happening in another episode. But for now, we'll be moving on to the scenario, the workplace situation. And if you guys have any questions that you'd like us to answer or situations that you'd like us to consider, please send an email to apprenticeish@gmail.com. That's apprenticeish@gmail.com. Obviously, this is our first season, so we don't have any. We don't have any.
Nobody's writing to us right now.
No. We're just reading scenarios that we've come across on the internet. So, and we're going to chinwag about them.
The workplace situation. So, last Sunday at work, I was having a conversation with two of my co-workers, one of them being non-black, another being a black man. In this conversation, they both agreed with each other and said that I scare them, I'm passive aggressive, and I come across as peed off, etc. When I asked them both to elaborate, they struggled to do so and couldn't really come up with anything based on my actions or my behaviour.
Surprise!
For context, I've always tried to be super nice and respectful to my co-workers. I've never had an issue with anyone at work ever. Never have other people described me as aggressive. Honestly, it's quite the opposite. I get along with most people well. Continuing on, when they were trying to explain how I'm aggressive, scary, etc., they just explained it was my vibe. I was confused because these were people I had established somewhat of a work friendship with. We always talked, joked, and got along. It didn't click to me at that moment because as I was thinking about it this week, I'm starting to realize it may have been a microaggression, perhaps stigmatizing me as the common angry black woman stereotype. Well, am I looking too deeply into this, or is it kind of racist? I've been so nice and kind to both of them, and for them to say I scare them with no real explanation of why is so crazy. It couldn't be based on any of my behavior, so the only thing I could think of is the angry black woman stereotype. Please, can anyone see if I'm overthinking or if I'm right? If so, how do I go about this at work? Because it really did hurt me and made me believe what they said was true. Advice.
That makes me so sad. Obviously, my heart goes out to you. It's not fun or encouraging to want to stay in. I call these things like it's kind of a hostile environment where someone has gone out of their way, unprovoked. I'm sure you did not go over to them or let me not say I'm sure, but there's a very high possibility you didn't go over to them or within conversation say, oh, how do you feel like I come across? 9 times out of 10, these kinds of opinions are given unprovoked. Now, I mean, even if it didn't, there's a way to communicate things, even if they did think that you were scary or passive aggressive. And that you come across as, I guess, being annoyed in the workplace. I'm so sorry. It just struck me this is a really good example. And I know we're not going to talk about it right now because we don't have time. But not everyone who is Black is an ally. That's another conversation, because she said one of them was a Black man and the other one was not a Black person.
That's my golden nugget, but it's fine.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but it's okay.
I am
You're just
so
doing the most right
sorry.
now.
Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah, we can lead into that. I didn't even read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a really good example of not having the expectation that everyone is going to be on your side just because they look like you. Separately, the fact that they couldn't come up with a concrete example as to why they felt like your behavior was exhibited as being aggressive. What was the other word?
Scary.
Aggressive and scary. That's very strong language for somebody who doesn't have any evidence.
No receipt.
Like literally nothing.
Yeah.
That's
so
very
crazy.
strong language. So I think it may be evidence of their own internal perception of Black women as a whole, and they've made you fit into that. But I would also, you know, if you don't have to take their opinion on as gospel, in the sense that doesn't have to be your truth. You don't have to hold on to that opinion and allow that to have an influence or impact over you. You can choose to reject that. And, you know, obviously you don't want to work in that kind of workplace environment.
Yeah.
But you've asked, what can you do? You could address it with them.
Yeah.
Directly.
Yeah, if you have that sort of mental capacity to do so. It's a shame because, I mean, she said it's really hurt her. And she said that they are her work friends. So it's not like, oh, this colleague said it to me in passing.
Not your friends.
Yeah, I know. We know that now. But I'm just saying
friends.
her initial understanding was these are my work friends. And yeah, it's very, very wild. I don't want to repeat anything that you're saying, but it is very, very... I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's their own internal thing. Stereotypes for us are harmful. Stereotypes for other people is how they try and understand and fit you into their world. So they may want you to be this, oh, hey, sugar, hey, honey, hey, lovely, how you doing? Maybe like mother figure for them. And you're actually coming to do your work and earn your money and go home. And they're just like, oh, well, she's not doing it for me. She's not doing everything that I've created in my head that I want her to do.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to label her as scary and passive aggressive and just negative. It's just slander. It's not true.
Not good.
And can I just say, I completely relate to this example. Like from as early as 4 or 5 years old, like in primary school, a teacher could scold me even though I'm not the bully in the situation. I'm actually the one being... offended, but all the person that's not my race has to do is cry. And it's like, Josephine, what did you do?
Oh, crocodile
what did you do, Josephine? You must have done something to her. And I haven't done anything. So yeah, these people, they have stereotypes that they existed long before you came along. Do you know what I mean? And even in university, I remember being at mixers and I was speaking to the rugby and football, it was like a rugby and football team, like they put on this social. And I was speaking to a couple of the guys and one of them was like, you know what? Like when I saw you on campus, I thought, I was like scared of you. I was like, oh, she looks so intimidating, but you're actually really nice. And I was like, what kind of backhanded compliment is that? That's not even a
no
compliment.
prior conversation, nothing.
You literally just saw a Black woman and were like, ooh, scary. And then when she
wild.
actually started having a human conversation with you, you were like, oh, this is so surprising and delightful. So it's crazy. Like you cannot riddle yourself worrying about what other people think about you at all.
Or trying to figure out why they perceive you like that.
Yeah.
It's I think based on their reaction, it's clear that they don't even know why they had that reaction to you themselves.
Yeah.
So how is it? It's not really possible for you to figure that out either.
Yeah.
And also, hopefully, you work with more than those two people.
Yeah.
So there are other people that you can build relationships with in the workplace, and you don't have to, completely retreat away from that environment.
Yeah.
You can just move on to another group of people if that's something that you want to do. But if
no, go on.
I was just going to say, but if you do want to maintain that relationship, it will need to be addressed.
100%. But as long as you know yourself as long as you know yourself, nobody can tell you who you are. And so other people's projections onto you will become like more and more their problem, and you'll start to be able to figure out, oh, this one's a bit weird, or this one has a weird way of thinking, or has a thwarted sense of this, because you know yourself and you're planted in who you are. So sorry for your experience. It's not fun at all.
Yeah. Hope you find some other fun work colleagues.
Yeah, unproblematic.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the golden nugget. So this is where we just give you a tidbit, an advice, like a book recommendation, anything that we think could serve you, just to end our episodes. So who wants to go first?
Go.
Okay.
Go first.
So my golden nugget is that Black people are not a monolithic group. You may have heard that before if you're a Black person, but it's basically saying that we're not all the same. But from the book, I forgot the name of the book, but Zora Neale Hurston, one of her famous quotes is not all skin folk are kinfolk. And I think it's important to not wrongly project your desires and thoughts and emotions and expectations on fellow colleagues just because they might be from the same place as you, area, ethnic group, or country as you. I think projection of that kind will lead to disappointment. And I think it's very important to balance that there are experiences that connect us as Black people, but there's also, you need to allow for that diversity of like, we all think very differently, we all process very differently, we react very differently.
Yeah.
We all have different motivations, and so just keep that in mind and use it to protect yourself sort of mentally in the workplace.
My golden nugget is sometimes it's not a race thing. It can be, there's such a long conversation about race in the workplace. It can be overwhelming, and sometimes it can make you have tunnel vision on an issue and sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's not because you're Black. Sometimes you need to learn how to upskill and, be more precise when you're writing, or cite more authorities, or, communicate clearly at which section you need assistance with in your work. So, that's my golden nugget.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the beginning of this conversation and today's episode. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week, guys. Bye.